Welcome to the new video. I'm going to teach you how to engineer and scale your online fitness coaching business with logic, right? A lot of fitness coaches do not do this. They're guessing, right? Post more, send more DMs, but they don't have the proper infrastructure in place and they don't even know what KPIs they're trying to hit, what the metrics look like, and most importantly, what the actual bottleneck is that they need to solve in order to get their business to the next level. So what I've done here is mapped out the whole infrastructure of what it looks like to go to 10K per month and then all the way up to 100K per month as well. So let's have a look at this down here, right? To begin with, getting to even 30K per month, to be honest. It's all about focus and simplicity. The biggest thing holding people back at this stage is honestly shiny object syndrome, right? Because every time you hop between different strategies, different methods, a different model, you completely reset the compounding interest, you kill all momentum, and that's why you don't get that kind of snowball effect when you're trying to grow your business, right? People just don't stick at anything for a long enough period of time. So really all you need is a good offer and your messaging validated, right, in terms of what the market is saying to it, people saying yes to what you're offering, things like that. But really you want to simplify here as much as possible. So one funnel, one offer, one content strategy, consistency and focusing on the right things at the right time, and accountability, right? Actually making sure that you stick on that path for long enough. That's all it, at this level, it is so simple, yet people mess it up. Now, if you want to scale beyond that point, right, what you did to get to there is not necessarily what's going to get you sort of 50K to 100K per month. At this stage, you really have to have a very clear vision that you reverse engineer. You need to be optimizing all the data points. You need to build more leverage with systems, hiring, AI, and you need to be able to identify the biggest bottleneck and solve it quickly, right? So focus gets a lot more concentrated at this level, but this is where you start to build out your team as well. So appointment setters, closers, and coaches, right? Depending on where you want your time spent the most. But as a CEO, you should be focusing where your strengths are and on the things that only you can do. For example, content, right? Someone can send DMs for you, someone can close for you, people can coach for you, people can do check-ins, onboarding, but they can't create your content for you. So it's about looking at the most leveraged thing for you to focus on, where your skills lie, and the things that only you can do as well. So this is the high-level overview of the infrastructure, okay? It all starts at the bottom, works our way up, and then all stars at the top. That's where everything is pointing towards at all time, right? This is where you craft your vision. You're basically designing your business around the lifestyle that you want to live, and you're trying to give yourself a competitive edge here as well. Then we've got the KPIs, reviews, value engines, which is basically how people come into the business and then how you fulfill on them. The operating execution playbooks, right? So obviously you have systems, subsystems, processes, everything at this level when you start to scale should be documented so you can start hiring people, but it doesn't have to be documented. You don't need an SOP for absolutely everything, right? You just need to know exactly what happens from the point of someone becoming a stranger to becoming a client and then to getting good results. The high performance output team, right? So this is when you start to build a team. People need to know exactly what to do and how to do it and when to do it. It needs to be so crystal clear. If you expect to just hire someone and then to just be a superstar and to take the lead and to do everything right, then you're highly mistaken, right? Everything needs to be systemized and meticulous and documented before you start hiring people. It's not so important when you're like 0 to 30K per month. And then at the bottom is all the infrastructure, right? So just nailing the basics and focusing on the right tasks and actually executing. So let's have a look at this in a bit more detail. So the 0 to 30K per month is honestly just about focusing on the right thing, having the right model, focusing on the right thing in the right order and doing it well and doing that consistently over a long period of time. And it looks a bit like this, right? So you want to know exactly who you're targeting because everything in your business revolves around that one person. That's who you're selling to, right? You don't make an offer without knowing who you're selling to first. You figure out who you're trying to target based on your experience, your background, where your strengths lie, who you want to target, what niche resonates with you the most, and then build a magnetic offer around that person, okay? And then you need a program to obviously deliver on those results in a leveraged way that doesn't require you to spend every hour actually manually fulfilling. Then you have to have the key systems in order to acquire the clients. So such as the content, right? What is the system behind you getting a post out there or getting post out there daily, how you nurturing these people, what role does each piece of content play? And then obviously when someone comes on board, you've got onboarding, and then you've got your weekly rhythm in terms of check-ins and things like that. We use a VSL as our main conversion mechanism, right? So this massively enhances stranger to client speed, show rate, close rate. It does a lot of the heavy lifting. You want to launch your offer properly. Now, a lot of people mess this up. They just post, hey guys, I'm doing a training plan, nutrition plan, and check-ins. No, you want to actually, if you're launching for the first time, you'll do what's called a beta launch, which is your first launch. But then even after that, like across the year, when you're designing your marketing campaigns, you might have 4 or 5 a year where you double down on specific parts of the year, such as lead up to summer, Black Friday, anything like that. You might even do a price increase. There's so many different reasons why you would launch. And this obviously just allows you to create those cash spikes. Then what we do is we build, run, and test a data-driven content strategy with crystal clear messaging that attracts the ideal fits. So obviously one part of this is competitor research and finding out what is working in the market right now, but there is some nuances around this. Okay, if we just scraped all the best performing content, a lot of it is going to be like influencers who are just entertaining, right? And yeah, the data looks good on the top of funnel, right? Maybe a lot of views, a lot of followers and whatnot, but it's not necessarily going to grow your business. So you have to make sure that you're doing market research in a way that you're scraping business accounts, right? Coaches that are doing really well and seeing what their best performing posts are so that you can bridge that gap between not knowing what to post and having a winning concept, and all that trial and error in between is what we're doing the market research for. So you can cut all of that out. Then when you actually get the ball rolling with attracting the right people, okay, you're starting to crack top of funnel here now. You need systems in place to identify and qualify potential clients so they don't slip through the cracks, right? So all of these are skills, but they're systems, right? It should be predictable. Then when you start to book calls, we use what's called anti-selling, which is flipping the sleazy car salesman vibes on its head. It works really well. All we're doing is diagnosing and providing a solution, but we're making sure that the right people are on the calls in the first place. Then we're strategically using client results to create a social proof snowball effect. Then all the parts of the system are running. We've got the KPIs, we're tracking the metrics, and we can figure out what needs work, how we can push more volume into the system, and then scale like that. So obviously this has helped a lot of people now. We've got Marcus, who went to 0 to 15K in 3 months. Cody, 0 to 10K in 4 months. Trevor, 8K to 73K in 3 months. Kirill, 500 to 4K in 2 months. James, 0 to 30K in 4 months. Callum, 5 paying clients in 14 days from nothing with no following on social media. So here's just some examples of focusing on the right thing in the right order. Marcus, he's scaled up to 200K per month now. So really, he nailed the foundations very quickly, which then allowed us to move more onto this kind of stuff, all right? But the thing about this phase is it's quite easy to overcomplicate what you're doing and to put focus on things that really don't matter based on where your business is currently at. Like a lot of this stuff is not necessary at that level. It's only when you start to scale where it does become important. Like value engines, right? You need to know exactly step by step how people come into the business and how you fulfill on those people, and what are the sort of metrics and KPIs associated with each system within each engine, right? So then you can monitor it and optimize it as you go to figure out any weak points, fill any gaps, and make sure that nothing is leaking. Then you've got the playbooks, right? Again, waste of time unless you're starting to hire. You want extreme levels of clarity and consistency in your business. You need to you need to almost operate and give your team members everything that they need as if they were like a 10-year-old, right? How the more clear you can make the role and how easy you can make it for them, the better output that you're going to have, right? So you set the standard. So you have to create the standard operating procedures so they know what good actually looks like, right? And then everyone needs to have a role. Okay, what are they actually accountable for? What playbooks every playbook or SOP that you have, someone should be the owner of it, right? Because if you don't do that, then what you're going to do is, I don't know if you've seen that meme where like you've Spider-Man, there's 3 of them pointing at each other. That's going to happen, right? Because no one is responsible for the SOP or the playbook, right? Something might need updating eventually. The owner should be the one updating that, right? And it just means that if something goes wrong, then you can refer to the playbook. And if they've not followed it, then you can ask them why they've not followed it, right? It just makes things a lot more black and white. So every team member should know exactly what they're accountable for and and know the exact tasks that they have to do. Obviously, the levels of responsibility are going to vary. If it's a lower role, then it should be very simple to follow. Very simple tasks that they have to do on a weekly basis. They know exactly what to do. The higher up you get, where it starts to become more like C-suite, then obviously they're going to have more freedom in order to innovate and things like that. But luckily, as an online fitness coach, it would be very unlikely if you got to that level where you would need C-suite operators. Then we go to the metrics, right? So you need to know your inputs and your outputs. So what are the outputs as a result of what you're doing? Marketing, sales, client success, and just general business metrics as well. So your inputs are like, how many times are you posting per week? How many DMs are you sending? Your outputs are like the positive replies, the calls booked, the followers you've gained, things like that. And you just want to know, you don't want to overwhelm yourself too soon. You just need to know what the important things are to track immediately. Obviously, the general business metrics, such as revenue, cash collected, calls booked, calls closed, calls lost, close rate, and followers gained, things like that are things that you should really be focusing on first. Things that are actually going to help you drive revenue into the business or drive client results if you were to make sure that they're operating well. Then we've got the KPI pulse checks. So when you then start to build your team, you need to have time where you're touching base, you're reflecting, and you can basically use this time as a way to know what's going on in the business, right? The meetings aren't about having a little chit chat. It's about having a structured way for you to get all the information you need as a CEO to then make better decisions. And just a kind of overview here of what a system actually is, right? Because obviously we talked about systems here and whatnot, playbooks with systems inside. All it is an input, a process, and an output. So the inputs are basically your manual work. The process is how you do it, and the output is the data. And then you obviously have to track, review, and optimize in order to iterate. Because if you don't iterate and you're just building false confidence, operating a system that isn't actually working because you're not using the data to actually analyze what's happening, then you're not obviously going to make progress. So it's a case of measuring the outputs, iterating the process, and then keeping on that loop. So tracking your data, such as your calls and things like that. Then at the top, we've got the North Star. So target market, what's the 3-year goal here? What's the competitive advantage? What are our core values? What is the why? What's the mission statement here? You need to know exactly where the business is going. You need to know exactly how you want your life to look in 2-3 years. And then what you can do is reverse engineer that. So you've got your North Star, your vision. Then you want to break that down into a yearly goal, quarterly goals, monthly goals, all the way down to daily execution and knowing what actually needs to happen in order to make sure that you stay aligned with that vision. And if you do that and you actually reflect and review and plan and strategize, which a lot of people don't do, okay? I need to post this amount of content per week. I need to post a YouTube video. That's it. That's so surface level. You need to reverse engineer your vision all the way down into the granular tasks and targets, the mini milestones. And people really miss that. But if you look at how businesses operate at a high level, so I used to be the business operations manager for a company that was doing around 800K per month. And you'd be surprised at how sophisticated it can get behind the scenes, right? Because every little action matters. And when you start to build out a team as well, if people don't even know what the vision is, then their focus and their efforts are not going to be aligned. And people are going to be moving in slightly different directions. So this is why the KPI pulse checks are important. The quarterly goals, the monthly goals, everyone needs to know what they're responsible for. Everyone needs to be moving in the same way towards that North Star. But yeah, so that's it. I just wanted to give you a behind the scenes of, as you start to scale, how you should be operating, how you should be thinking. Based on where you're at right now, if you want to book a call below, we'll map out the next 30 days for you, figure out what the biggest constraint is in your business, and put a plan together to fix it. So if you want to book that, it's just in the link in the description, and I'll see you there. Talk soon.